Sir, we are live, sir. Please start.
Okay. So a very good morning to all our students and participants and takers of this course. Well, I welcome you all to this course, Strategies for Sustainable Design at NPTEL and SWAYAM. And yes, today here we are live for this interaction session with all the participants and whoever has any sort of queries. So, well, you are welcome to put up your queries in the queries form. And yes, I'll answer one by one. So first I see this question by Abhinay, and he has asked IEQ and its impacts on occupants. Well, it's a very important question, and in the recent times it has become even more relevant because things have changed quite a lot in the last 2 years. Post pandemic, this period what we are living, and a good number of like our society, good number of like people are confined to household for longer duration, and you may have got to know like newspaper articles having psychological issues, having health related issues, having even fitness issues, and how to cope up with that. So it's a very direct form of one resultant of like IEQ, indoor environmental this quality, and how it can be improved. Well, so it is not exactly the same what we are talking about over here, but it has a lot to do with it. Let me decode it one by one. If I take this term IEQ, so it has this indoor world, then environmental world, and this quality world, right? So environment, what all it includes? Environment includes number of things in physical sense, in psychological sense, in like sensory senses, in like human psychophysical comfort senses, right? And multiple things, right? So we have got to see like how like good air quality is very important for the human habitation. Okay, so the first and very prime question comes under this IAQ and IEQ is the air quality. Okay. So what kind of air we breathe inside? Well, there are a lot of tools and equipment installed at different cities and different like weather stations, different observation centers to record the air quality of the outside environment. This generic this urban environment. But how about the indoor environment? Unless you have your own equipment, there is no direct measurement on day-to-day life to give us any idea about what kind of environment we are living in. And if you see like almost more than like half of our daily life we spend indoors, whether it is our house, whether it is our workspace, our office, like or wherever we work, like our professional spaces. Well, most of them are outdoors, unless somebody works like outdoors. So mostly these are like indoors, right? So how in human habitation and how at the workplace we can improve it? So first and foremost comes like air quality, which includes number of like gases and stuff what actually get emanate. And first of all, our own body emits these gases, so we have to be very cautious. For example, when we run air conditioner, it's summer month, the beginning of summer month, already our southern states are facing good amount of like a heat, an average temperature going like above like close to 30, right? So air conditioners use is very common. What happens? Most of these household air conditioners which do not come with the fresh air units, they keep recycling the same air which is there present in any given room, unless you have open window or some other means of getting the fresh air change. Okay, so if the same air is getting circulated for several times, and it just keeps cooling the air, it doesn't adds the amount of oxygen needed. Okay, so the gradually the concentration of CO2, COs, and any other like gases, it keeps rising over the night. Okay, that may be disastrous in some cases. You may get to like hear in the newspaper articles like somebody slept overnight in a car. Okay, it proves kind of fatal. One may lose their life. And the problem is these gases, they do not kind of give their side effects directly, right? So they are kind of known as silent killers. Very first moment the person starts losing his or her consciousness, And if you are unconscious, you will never know like what is happening to you. Okay, so these actually factors are very, very important and crucial. Okay, and well, there are many other type of impacts also, like since you have talked about environmental quality. So environmental quality includes many other features, such as having a good access to a good view outside. Okay, so there are psychological effects also. If some person is confined, okay, in a given room with no opening, no exchange, okay, the person will start experiencing like a psychological like a traumatic situations also. That's what happens when somebody gets imprisoned, like you lose your liberty. Well, not that extreme, but yes, slowly it does happen, like like big offices where there is huge floor area, so not everybody will be able to get outside views, right? So this kind of things happen. So for them actually indoor, like pasting of like a good scenes and scenarios and paintings, wall paintings and other kind of environment, synthetic environment generation actually people create, right? So beginning from physical to psychophysical to like mental, there are all of these kind of issues involved with IEQ. So I hope you have understood by now, like how important this IEQ is. So of course it is very important, as you have mentioned, IEQ and its impact on occupants. So very important, and there could be many factors. Okay, so second question, what I'm getting is from Alisha Bazaz. The question is, what kind of questions one must expect in the final exam? Are the lectures enough for the exam preparation? Yes. So these lectures, what is being delivered to you through the like our portal is sufficient, and all of these questions are prepared from this lecture itself and the presentations what you see on the screen. And final exam is going to be like multiple choice questions, MCQ. So you just have to answer by that. So you do not have to write subjective answers. Yes, some assignments which are I think happening in the later part, like a later second half part of the course, you will have subjective assignments where you need to write subjective answers to those like questions. So these questions may actually ask you to record something place based, something your locality based, or something like that. So you can keep those things in mind. But to answer your question, this is going to be MCQ only. Yeah. If there is any other question. Yeah, so as this course suggests, I'll brief you all for this course and the structure of this course, how we have conceptualized this course and the delivery of it, what is the course layout, and what are the components we are covering under this course for your better understanding. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. So this course actually suggests I'll brief you all for this. Yes. Yeah, good morning, sir. Is there any question from your side?
So am I permitted to talk, sir?
Yes, you can ask your question.
Sir, I'm TV Subbarao. Unfortunately, what happened is in NPTEL, I registered for 4 courses.
Mm-hmm.
And it so happened that the exams are only on 23rd and 24th.
Okay.
So in order of priority, I just opted for
administrative
that.
Administrative block. అవసరం ఇక్కడ మనిషి ఇక్కడ ఉన్నాడు, కేపీ గారిని కలవాలి.
I think we hear somebody else also.
Yes, sir. I'm TV Subbarao, sir.
Yeah, please continue.
Because of the restriction of maximum of 3 courses, it can be appeared through NPTEL examination. Then I had asked the NPTEL team that when can this sustainable strategies examination going to be held? Like attending the course, submitting the assignments and all, that's okay. But the thing is, I cannot attend. I had already opted for the other courses. So this exam, when can I take it in case if I require to postpone it?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I understood your problem. So, well, I do not have, answer to this question, directly from my side, but definitely I can, convey.
కూర్చొని వచ్చే
So
ఆపితే స్టార్ట్ లైట్ వెలుగుతున్నాయి రిపేర్ చేయించాలంటే కుదరదు అందుకని ఆన్ చేసి పెట్టాలి.
yeah, I think we
Red
are
light
hearing Mr. Babji Malilani. Are you able to hear? Please mute yourself if you are not asking any question. So Venkat sir, I'll convey your question to NPTEL team, and I'm sure they will be able to help you with the scheduling course exams accordingly. Okay.
Sure.
So yeah.
One
If
more
you have-
issue which I have, sir.
Yeah, please.
Recently, you are working with IIT Hyderabad, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
I had seen I mean, of course, it's nothing to do with this NPTEL course. Can I take the liberty of asking that question on this platform?
Well, this platform is, I think, meant for only this course. So maybe you
Okay,
can, yeah, for other queries, maybe you can write me directly.
Okay, I'll do that, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. So if there is any question on this course, feel free to ask me. Otherwise, I'll go ahead with the, explaining the course structure. So the course actually discusses sustainability principles first of all, because in sustainability, if you see, is the umbrella term, and it involves a number of different like domains, and measure which is defined by United Nations is the ESE aspects, what we briefly know, like environmental, social, and economics, right? So under these also, like there are several divisions, okay, and there are multiple things which comes into the picture. Well, it depends on the application also, like what kind of application we are going into, and accordingly we frame our tool and like a method, like how we are going to deal with it, right? So for example, if it is about a building which falls under like a civil engineering or architecture, right, design, or planning, execution, construction, materials, energy consumption, all of those things. So then it gets driven by those circumstances. But the moment we talk about social sustainability, then of course the people, the community, the individuals, like human beings, all of these things actually become paramount to frame our course of actions and course of like a framing policies, and we work accordingly. Well, third one, economics. So economics, if you see, is the major driver of the society. Today, our country and rest of all the countries across the world, they have such a a model in place which is driven by economics. We work, we earn, we spend, and that's how we learn our livelihood, and that's how we live our life, where we try fulfilling our everyday needs, our long-term needs, all sorts of needs of today and tomorrow, by working somewhere, by employing our abilities, right? So this whole process actually involves an economic work that involves working, that involves producing things, that involve servicing, that involves all of those things. So economics and this commerce is the major driver of the world, like right now, if you can see. Well, this has been a major driver, for like since like older times. In the older times also, there was like a economic and commercial exchange used to happen, between countries, between different states, and that's how actually people started exploring like ocean routes, right? And voyages, they took very long voyages. Many of them actually kind of got lost while on their expedition, but many actually succeeded, and that's how they ended up like exploring the new places and new worlds. So economics, if you see, is the major driver. Well, why we are going to the moon and Mars and all? Well, there are multiple regions. There may be the first and foremost is the scientific and technological endeavors. We are trying to explore, we want to know things, okay. But right next to it, I think economics follows, like, because unless something is not viable economically, it may face challenges for its survival, right? So economics here in our sustainability terms also is very important. Like we know, like UN SDGs are given by United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Okay. Well, these are the policy frameworks. These are like guidelines. These are like a model ways and methods of like how things can be improved the way they are right now. Because in what condition they are, is not sufficiently like, working for the sustaining in the sustainably going into the future, right? So for implementing those SDGs also, there is, like a big economics in the picture, which is going to help it. Okay, unless and until it is not supported by, some financials and, hardcore, like a money, right? How it will survive, how it can be implemented. Like, for example, if we see the first ones, ending poverty, ending, hunger, right? So these are, such a crucial things which require, so much of investment, right? So much of bringing those people to, at least a minimum, respectable level where, they can eat, every day comfortably, with the full nutrition, so that their health can be taken care of, further their education can be taken care of, further, their housing can be taken care of. So all of those issues, if you see, they are actually more or less, for the welfare of like every living and non-living entity also on this planet. So more or less it covers, entire planet in its totality. It touches, even water, it touches even air, it touches, all the flora and fauna, biodiversity, right? It touches the place, it touches, different, remote regions, right? Yeah, like sometimes we can, say like what direct connection do we have with the Amazon forest? We are living in India. Yeah, hello. Is this person, Mr. Babji Malineni, is he able to hear me? Please mute yourself. Yeah,
Sorry, sir.
Yeah, no worries. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Yeah. So, see, directly we do not see any, direct connection with the, Amazon forest, or maybe even the Mount Everest, or maybe in the deeper parts of the oceans. But if you study the, all of this, climatic science, environmental sciences, and all of these, things which are, associated, so you will find, there is a direct, connection, between us and all of those, faraway places and all of those entities, right? From where, this whole world is getting its, air supply, fresh oxygens and all of those things. Like we know, like we promote, a lot of like a trees plantation. Like we call them like, they are supplying us with the oxygen, and the trees are very important. Of course they are. There are, other forms of, biological, like entities, such as like, these algae and many other things, which are like, ocean based, plants, which are, underwater, they also produce, oxygen in equal amount. And if you see this whole world, this planet as a one single entity has actually two lungs, like a two, the parts of this lung, like left and right. One, of course, is supplied by, our trees, which are, above the surface, on this, surface, what is visible to us where we live. And one is, down the, water surface, in the oceans and underwater. So all of these entities are, very important. And that is where it is, becomes very important to understand, this interrelationship. Okay, so sustainability, if you see, is a very vast, like a subject, and a topic in itself. But yes, in this course we have tried to come down to those strategies which are crucial, for if you are taking up any design exercise, for example, and manufacturing exercise, for example, a construction exercise, for example, and maybe infrastructure related, exercise, how you can exercise, these tools, in an efficient way to, reach to a sustainable, mechanism, sustainable, system. That's where, this course was actually visualized. So it talks about, at planning level, it talks about at urban level, neighborhood level, at individual buildings level, and individual even products level also, right? How things are related, because things are not standing in isolation. Okay, nobody stands in isolation. If you see, like even us, even if like I am an individual person, you are an individual person, we are connected with our families, our immediate families, our neighborhoods, our friends, our a place of our employment, the place we are, living, and then in its all together, it becomes a community. And that community, multiplied by several other, like communities, coming together, it becomes like a town, maybe a city, and then a country, or, all of these states, continents, on this whole planet, right? So things are actually quite a large. If you see the number of, consumption of things, they are in much more, like in millions and billions. Okay, and this is where, these number comes, so you and me, such as like, individuals, we contribute, to all of these figures. So sometimes when we refer, to these CO2 emissions, like per country, or maybe consumption of like, for example, a very basic things such as, like wheat and pulses, such as, like milk, which is essential for, nutritious, like diet, right? So per capita, consumption of this country to the next country, and then so on. Similarly, how about, like textiles? How much of, like per capita consumption is there? Similarly for, like drinks and other things. Similarly to the furniture, products, buildings, spaces, many other things. Even like, like a per person, like how many doctors are there per person, how many police personnel are there per person, how many other professionals are there per person, per like a class, how many teachers are there per, number of students, right? All of these things are, interrelated, and they grow, with it. So with this collective, goal of improving things, this is where, we are discussing. So let me enter into giving the course layout in case there is any other question. Okay, I'm refreshing the question sheet. Okay, not yet. Yeah, so the course layout is divided into 12 weeks. And the week 1 actually targets, definitions and perspectives of sustainability. Like, a few things what we, just spoke of, like what is sustainability and how to differentiate, different terms, which, we know them as kind of, like a synonymous. For example, a green design. For example, an energy efficient design. For example, an environmental design. For example, a sustainable design. Okay, where they are interrelated. Okay, what means what? Because sometimes we keep using them, interchangeably. Okay, well, that is not correct, because all of them, hold a particular, meaning and particular, like a coverage, like how much they are, covering. Okay, how much is the scope of, that particular thing. For example, when we are discussing energy efficient design, okay, we are just discussing about, like energy efficiency. It's like, improving the mileage of an engine. Okay, so the better the mileage, the better the efficiency of that engine will be. Okay, but at the same time, we are not discussing about, kind of emissions it may generate, the kinds of, like resources it may consume, the kind of, impacts it may have on the society, or even on the, like, on the road and things like that. Okay, so some tools are very, very, like a focused. It doesn't mean, it's not needed and it's useless. It's very much, relevant and important and necessary to understand the, bigger picture. So once you have, this kind of, understanding, you can go on and complete your, like other necessary kind of, like a parameters, and then take an overall, kind of, decision. Yeah, so here in this week 1, definitions and perspectives on sustainability in industrial design and built environments. Second talks about, like ESE aspects of sustainability and climate change mitigation. Well, what is mitigation? Mitigation, I think, is very simple. If you see the, dictionary, meaning of, like mitigation, it talks about, kind of, reducing the, like impact of, like a climate change, as, simple as that, you can understand. Okay, so how we can, well, of course, there is, like impact, due to the climate change. Climate is changing, every year. There is, like significant kind of, changes being observed, world over, in form of, like different, catastrophes and disasters which are happening, different kind of, like impacts which are happening. Okay, so there is, like this collective kind of, effort which is needed, to finally, like a counter, this climate change, which has become a global, issue right now. Why these, summits and things are, taking place every year, every alternate year, to strategize, for. So this is where, the concept of this course also comes. So this week 2 lectures actually talk about that. Then we move to the week 3, current national and international scenario of sustainable development and dependence on energy. So in this scenario, it is very important to understand, what is happening in our country. Okay, what kind of things are, taking place. Okay, so all the kind of, like a good examples, not so good examples, and in between examples, like extreme, solutions, very, very humble and frugal solutions, all of those things, which are available in and around us and internationally. Right. So it is important for us to know. It's like, giving like a case study. Okay. So whenever we conduct like a study, or we conduct like a project analysis of things, okay, We look for, case studies, because case studies are the, best examples, where we get to see, like a similar kind of, scenarios and how to deal with, and on how somebody has already done it. Okay. So it's like, for, learning mathematics, we need not go and, reinvent the zero, right? It doesn't make any sense. So how we can, build upon the, shoulder of others who have already done, some work, right? So this was actually, planned in this one, so that you have a better understanding what is going on in and around us. Well, of course, there are, number of efforts coming on. I have given, some examples from, textile industry, like how, certain companies, certain individuals, they started, kind of, minimizing the waste in the textile industry. Textile industry is also one of the, like industries which produces the largest amount of like waste, solid waste, So in the form of like, these yarns, fibers, even ready-made, garments, right? And, and there is, many other impacts, such as like, like for the dyeing, like those pigments, what we use natural and, synthetic ones. So they also have, like some of them have very bad, impacts. Some of them are even known. So how like a society can live with, certain compound and still continue to use, certain compound, which is now at least, known that is carcinogenic, right? So it definitely, requires, some kind of substitution and alternate, right? So those kind of, like examples give us, like a clues, like how some other, industry can also benefit, or maybe some other company can benefit, and adopt, similar kind of approaches, right? So, well, in the recent times, there is, like so much of push which is coming from the, central government of India, and I know like even state governments which are, promoting, these schemes to go green, to go environment friendly, to go, community friendly, and things like that, right? So this is where these case studies, become very important. Next, week 4, we have impact of pollutions and design processes with alternative solutions for health of the ecosystem. Well, health of the ecosystem. So like human health, we as an individual have a, like, a good health, condition. And that is a good health condition when, you do not feel, like the organs and different parts of your body. The moment you have, like a fever or, something, some issues going on related with digestion or maybe headache or something, we start feeling, this particular, a body part is giving me, some pain and things like that. Okay. So those are the kind of, like you can take as like a symptoms of something is not right, right? So those symptoms are very much visible if we see the health of the ecosystem. For example, when you pass through the railway line, through the town of Vapi, which comes, little north of, I think, Bombay, right? So there you will see, the kind of, extent of pollution which has happened, at that particular, like one place, right? So it's extremely disastrous. And that town, I think, is under in the list of the world's most polluted, places. Okay. So how about the health of ecosystems at that particular place? Okay. Similarly, wherever there are, like a heavy industry, such as like, cement industry, such as like, tile manufacturing industry, such as like many other, types of like textile based, right? Or maybe pigment based or things like that. Okay. Or maybe even leather processing industry. Okay. Sugar mills, right? So there actually pollution is extremely like bad, for the like human habitation, right? And that is, like one feels it. The moment you pass, from next to a sugar mill, you will, encounter, that, very pungent, smell. That's because of, that effluent and that byproduct which comes out of, the processing of like a sugar, right? So how that can be taken care of? Well, there have been many several, instances earlier. One I'll give you is the thermal power plants. Like thermal power plants, used to have, like this byproduct of fly ash, right? And how innovatively this was addressed, this material, because fly ash is a very, like a very fine, it runs in like, in microns, is very fine, dust, of the coal, okay, which has the potential that it can, harm our, lungs. If, somebody is exposed to it for a like extended period of time, it can have very disastrous effects, like breathing related issues. Plus it kills, the fertility of the soil also, wherever it falls, as a like, as a powder, it starts killing, the nutrition, nutritions of the soil and the qualities of the soil with which it produces these cereals and grains agriculture produces, right? So how innovatively it was actually addressed is one of the solutions where you can take inspiration from. And maybe if you are taking any such project, you can go for it and think for an alternative ways of taking care of such byproducts and effluents, right? Like Buckminster Fuller, I would like to mention this quote. Buckminster Fuller is a very famous a person who gave that geodesic dome structure and many other things. He once spoke of pollution is a state where some resource is not present in its right place. Okay, it's present in somewhere where it should not be, right? So, well, any compound, any material is a waste, which is where it happens when it is not in the right place. When, like, for example, this waste water, it gets into the an agricultural, a fields, it becomes a waste. It becomes an issue. Some gases, when they start coming and mixing in the breathable air, where you and me are breathing and we are living, that becomes a pollution, right? So if you take that out and put it to its right place, of course the issue will be solved. Okay, so that's what it means, and that is what today's actually society needs to do. We need to take out these compounds and these things which are causing pollution and put them at the right place. Because if you see, all of these things are coming from some processes, some industrial processes, maybe some chemical processes, maybe some biological processes and things like that. Why those processes cannot be moved and cannot be taken care of to reduce that pollutants and things, right? So this is what is discussed in the week 4. Let me move to the next module, that is week 5, environmental impact assessment and life cycle analysis. So in this one, we have discussed how to assess these type of impacts. Like, for example, if there was mindless cutting of mangroves, okay, in the later years it was observed that the soil erosion started happening. The tide, low tide, high tide, started impacting the coastal areas, right? And the salinity actually that also it started impacting the biodiversity of that place, and many other animals, aquatic animals we were living, they lost their habitat, right? And all of those kind of issues. So you see, one single plant such as mangrove, if you remove it from its natural habitation, and you see the impact. So it is very, very impact understandable, and to not to harm these things. So there are systematic ways and means and methods to evaluate and assess these scenarios, right? So we know them as environmental impact assessments, EIA, and many other tools. So mainly if there is any a bigger project such as infrastructural project is going to be floated or launched, okay, so it requires to be addressed in such a way so that one can understand the impacts of it. Accordingly, if there is any improvements you want to make into that, you can do that, and definitely you go and launch it, right? So this helps in evaluating the scenario, evaluating the projected scenario, also what is going to happen in the years to come. For example, if there is any hydro electric project, for example, a new hydroelectric project is going to launch, okay, we know hydroelectric projects are one of the most damaging ones on the environment, right? Well, they take a huge swath of land, several maybe hundreds of kilometers, they inundate in the water, plus it adds botheration to the this Earth's plate also, because there is significant amount of weight is going to suddenly rise on one particular location. Okay, so it may create issues. So there are studies which indicate a earthquake kind of situations also may start occur. There are displacement of human societies and settlements from that area, even animals and birds from that area, loss of even something maybe which has been historically important placed over there, loss of those kind of things also, so there may be many kind of impacts. So how those impacts can be minimized, these understandings actually begins. So one of the researchers suggested, instead of going for one very large hydroelectric project, you go for several smaller ones. So the impact also can be reduced into several smaller kind of units, right? So well, of course, this comparison, how will you be able to make, right? So if you conduct independent IEQs for both of the scenarios, you will be able to see those concerning parameters, what are their impacts, and which one is higher, which one is lower, and accordingly you can take a decision. So you see like how important and crucial this tool is, right? And this tool, of course, is used by like governments, research organization, environmental, environment agencies, which are working in these areas, a research organization, academic, organization and institutions, right? And even independent researchers, right? You as a student, maybe you can take up, some project at your master's or, PhD level, and you can conduct, something like this. So this actually broadens, its application, right? So this is where we have kept it, and LCA is also one of the very integral one. How to understand one unit, one single product's impact. Like for example, our mobile phones, our electronics, or maybe like food packets, maybe like these beverages which are coming in the Tetra packs of glass, or like aluminum cans and things like that. How to assess their impacts. There we use life cycle analysis. So for life cycle analysis, there are like already some tools available online. Maybe OpenLCA is one of the software which is a free software which is open to use. So I would advise maybe you all can install. I think it's just takes a few MBs, 100, 200 MB or 300 MB space on your computer, and maybe you can conduct some assignments. You can take maybe any known product to you which is known to you. You can conduct this LC exercise and get to see. So this actually tool gives us impact assessment for individual kind of scenarios. Yeah, any questions from the audience? Yeah, feel free to ask and interrupt me if you have any queries. If you want to add also, you are welcome to add. Yeah, so now I'll move to the week 6. So in the week 6, we have policy, growth, development, and R's for consumption. So it is important to understand also what are the kind of policies and frameworks like our country has. So NBC, National Building Code of India, is one of the codes or reference books which is prepared by BIS, Bureau of Indian Standards. Okay, they every few years they keep releasing new updates, new additions into it, and the recent one and the prevailing one was released in year 2016. Okay, so NBC, that is one of the reference books which helps architects, engineers, manufacturers, building operators, and many other agencies, even manufacturers, even service providers, okay, who are associated directly or indirectly with the building industry. So what you manufacture and up to what kind of specifications to use. Like for example, if there is staircase going to come up in a building, so what are the kind of suggestions given by that? If it is related to fire safety, what are the guidelines? If it is related to water, what are the guidelines? So all of those comprehensive things you will get to learn from there. So if you are a kind of a person associated with this industry, you are suggested to refer NBC also. This will be one of the very important reference books available in India. Many other tools such as like a Griha, LEED, IGBC, they have also consulted NBC codes to frame up their tools. Since a tool is a very specific comes with very specific applications, so it has like a pinpointed target what they want to kind of assess or evaluate. For example, Griha and LEED, so their target is to rate a building on certain given parameters, sustainability parameters, right? So they find this source in the NBC. So you see, like NBC is such a reference books. Reference book, it comes in the 2 volumes, volume 1 and 2. Okay, and it touches very comprehensively all of those topics. Well, the kind of good thing to know about the latest NBC 2016 is that a whole new chapter of approaches to sustainability in part 11 was added for the first time. So that also, underlines the importance of, sustainability studies in building industry and product design, like how crucial it has become in the recent years, right? So maybe you can refer in your free time to that part 11 of NBC of India 2016 version. That will be helpful to you. Now I'm come to week 7. Okay, that I was speaking of NBC, CBC. CBC is also Energy Conservation and Building Code, where we specifically talk about, energy related, aspects in the buildings and sustainability assessment methods such as GRIHA and LEED. So I just spoke of. Then I'll come to the week 8. This is UN SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, and system design tools such as SPSS, MSDS, by Lens. Lens is a learning network on sustainability. You can Google, you will get to see. It's a academic and research organization, international organization, which is a kind of a conglomerate of different academic and research institutions from across the world, where everyone meets, they discuss, they study, they conduct, like a case-based, like a case studies. They develop, they have developed, number of tools for conducting, like a such kind of, taste and evaluations. Okay, so it is such an like a organization. Yeah, and SDGs we have already developed, discussed initially in the beginning of this interaction. System design is one of the things I would like to highlight. System design is a kind of a tool and is a very important aspect of design process where we see things in totality. For example, a red light on a given like a street or a road or a highway, how is it interrelated to the accidents, the safety of like human beings and the users, and efficient flow of traffic on the road, and thus reducing the unnecessary like emissions, right? Saving somebody's life, and keeping traffic and movement of that like that place into the check and all of those kind of things. So you see, like one simple thing such as like a red light, this traffic light, is very, very crucial for managing like several things. And even some persons life, like who knows, like like this these red lights, these traffic lights, how many lives they have saved, because we realize in the absence of these lights how much of accidents take place, and how somebody unnecessarily and totally ridiculous for ridiculous reasons and end up losing their lives, or at least limbs, right? Somebody may met with like accidents and they kind of getting in turn like hurted, like breaking their limbs and sometimes losing their life. So we get to see those impacts in the absence of these events, right? Once it is there, of course, I think well, accidents can still happen, but majorly is by like a human error, but if the kind of such kind of an intervention is considered efficiently, keeping all the stakeholders and agencies in mind and the scenario in mind, it is likely that it will prove very much worthy and efficient for its purpose, right? That becomes like systemic design intervention, where you not just give a design solution, you give a design solution by considering the number of like stakeholders who may be involved. For example, whenever there is like a new infrastructure project comes into the like existence, such as I would like to mention Delhi Bombay, this high speed freight corridor of Indian Railways, right? So when this was announced, this kind of studies were also made, because it was going to lay a whole new railway line. So a huge vast swath of land was going to be utilized for this project. And that's a long distance we are talking about, a distance between Delhi and Bombay, right? So what kind of impacts this like intervention is going to have, right? So this of course requires a systemic intervention, because one can take care of all other stakeholders who are directly or indirectly associated. That becomes like systemic design intervention, right? So I hope you are able to get it. If there is any confusion, let me know. Yeah, so
So
hello. Yes, I'm able to hear.
So one question about I don't know whether this is the platform to ask or not. It's week number 6, where we are talking about the transportation corridor. Can I go ahead to ask for a clarification here, sir, or it is not the proper platform?
No. If it is related with the course content, of course.
Yeah, with the course.
Yeah,
Yes,
please go ahead.
So what was asked is, which was the one of the state which is not forming part of this corridor?
Which is not
corridor.
part of this.
Yeah, which is not. Yeah.
Okay.
So what happened? There are two choices which mingles with the thing like Delhi, Bombay. I don't remember right now, but definitely Gujarat was the answer as far as the key is concerned. There's one more point. There is a Arunachal Pradesh. So once if I take Delhi, Bombay as a corridor, and Chennai and Goa and Delhi, another corridor. That's a circuitous one. So Arunachal is the odd man out. Gujarat can be somewhere here. So it was replied that way. Arunachal is the odd man out. Okay. And the key says it's Gujarat.
Okay.
And Gujarat being one of the manufacturing hub for most of the things recently developed quite a lot. And that is in non-incursion of Gujarat state as part of this corridor, whatever reason it is. Arunachal, of course, we can still agree that nothing has gone beyond the Siliguri corridor, that is northeast. I just wanted to leave it to you. I don't want any answer to this also, because that's my logic which goes.
Okay. Well, sometimes, these MCQ questions, they come with,
I agree. I understand.
Quick answers. So,
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Yeah.
The second, sir, about this Griha, NBC, the new chapter which has been added in 2016 volume sustainability part of it, and we talk about ECBC and things like that. Practically speaking, to measure the sustainability of the plastic waste, you refer to some software and other things. Of course, I'm not connecting this to, but practically it becomes, of course, for me still okay. I can roam around and run around. For the youngsters, it will be very difficult for them to I really doesn't know. Any practical application of that particular software it can be added or given a YouTube that I will write out. In case if it can be given off the cup, I can say through you.
Yeah.
Whatever that I feel more.
Thank you. I think yes, I would like to thank you for this feedback. Yes, definitely. I think we would like to offer these as an additional maybe module or maybe a course sometime else where students will get to learn how to take up these assignments in real life. Okay, so let me give you some clarifications on this. NBC is a reference book which is launched by BIS, Bureau of Indian Standards, and that is used by a number of stakeholders under like a building design and construction industry. Well, Griha is a tool which is launched by TERI in consultation with the government of India's that ministry and many other research organization. Okay, it's a specific tool which tries to assess a building's sustainability parameters, and it gives us certain rating this building has qualified so much, and there is a minimum bar to get a Griha rating. One building must achieve that many numbers, those mandatory criteria if you refer that tool. So that much of like a minimum numbers it should definitely satisfy, then only it becomes eligible to take up that. Coming down to the LCA. LCA is a tool which we use for just life cycle impact of a product. So it doesn't necessarily include social aspects or economic aspects or like an other kind of related things, right, like a pollution and all. So it just kind of draws a comparison of like how kind of a product is performing on life cycle analysis. So what a life cycle analysis, if you take a base example of a tree. So a tree actually gets its birth by a seed like one day, then it grows into like a big tree, and then it kind of dies one day and it falls on the ground, right? It decays, decomposes, and it goes back to the nature someday again, right? So there is life which is going like circular, right? So a tree, once it becomes dead, it decays and decomposes and goes back to the soil, and then there is no trace of it, right? Similar kind of things are not happening in most of the human-made products, such as like a plastics. If you see, plastic is very usable, very friendly material in the recent times, which has come up, and now almost each and every consumer product or an accessory has some component or part which is made up of plastic. Like even in the medicine industry, this healthcare industry, if you see these syringes, a number of components, they are utilizing plastic. So plastic has become such a like a ubiquitous like a product in our like a time. But the biggest problem with this is like it has a very long its own life, right? So it usually does not go back to nature in like a short span of time. It takes a very long period of time. Okay, and this is where the issue is. So I think yeah, I was able to like give you these different differentiations. Thank you for your question and this feedback. Definitely I'll have a discussion with the NPTEL, and we will arrange for this plugin also, so that you all get to like take up these assignments. I think it's not a very a difficult exercise to conduct an LCA like this exercise. It's very easy and very simple, but definitely I think it needs to be taught at least once, so that everyone gets to know about it. Definitely I'll take
it, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your feedback. Yeah. So I'll move to the week 9 module. This is vernacular and responsive design using net zero energy, lighting, ventilation, views, etc. for the human comfort. So of course the human comfort, which is like which matters a lot, and human comfort is not just in the like a temperature or like a humidity and things. Human comfort in terms of like a psychological comfort also. Sometimes these spaces where we live, they do not have those means to add someone's physios or psychological like behaviors, like the one I spoke initially. What if somebody is working in a very confined and dingy environment over a long period of time? The person may start experiencing like abnormal kind of issues, right? So it has direct relation. You can see over here the question was related to IEQ. One student has asked, right? So the human actually comfort constitutes all of these things, and these criteria are finding their places in these tools which are coming up in the recent times. Like Griha we were talking about. Griha has a criteria which talks about like a good views, quality views, so that you are at least exposed to the like a greenery outside, maybe some trees, some green areas, grass, or maybe maybe like people like walking, maybe a street, maybe an open area, maybe something, so that like humans are visible to you, some green spaces are visible to you, there is good view outside, right? So taking to that level also, like how human comfort has kind of is getting redefined in the contemporary scenario. Well, coming to the first portion, that is vernacular and responsive design. This is one very important thing which is there in all of the vernacular architectural systems, vernacular like cultural systems from across the world. Well, India is a country of like heritage. Any state, any district you go, you will find some unique thing, right? And similarly, you will find unique architecture also. If you go to Jammu and Kashmir, you will find very interesting like a timber houses, and how people survive such extreme cold climates. If you go to like Tamil Nadu and Kerala, you will see how people are surviving in a very hot and humid environment. Similarly, if you go to Gujarat or Rajasthan, hot and like a arid environment. If you go to like Assam and Meghalaya and other places, very hot and temperate and like a moist environment where there is so much of like rain also. Like you may be aware, like India is one of like, India has one of the places which is one of the highest rainfall receiving place, Mawling Long, that Masindram, that place in Meghalaya, right? So how architecture is surviving. And similarly, like we have any state, if you go to Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, like how to survive in these plains, how to survive in Sikkim, how to survive in Bengal, right? So any of these states, if you see, they come with their unique architectural style. Now let me tell you, if you go to Rajasthan, you will see a lot of use of like stone, like stone jali, stone chhatris, like thick walls, very lesser sized openings, You go to like a Karnataka and Tamil Nadu, you see like a courtyard houses, a lot of like a wind, like a movement ka provisions. If you go to like Guwahati, you will also find, like how houses are like some places elevated, to take care of, so much of water in the ground or on the ground, right? Or, very high, like rainfall, right? If you go to Manipur, you will see, like interesting use of like a terracotta, like a temples and buildings and structures. If you go to Bengal, you will find a lot of use of like, ceramic and terracotta, right? Any state, you name it, and there are, amazing examples. Like if you go to Himachal, again, the combination of stone and timber. Very interesting, like a Dhajidwari and all, you may have, read. Similarly, if you go international, if you go to Africa, any part like southern, northern, or middle parts, if you go to South America, North America, if you go to like, Japan or China or Thailand, any of these countries, even if you go to like a traditional, like structures from Australia, okay, very unique and, kind of linked to that place. This is where, this vernacularity comes. So vernacularity has, very strong, feature that is it rooted to a place, and how architecture is responding to that climate, how it is answering, because the climate and in external, environments, these elements like air, water, and the sun, they put up a challenge to the human society. Like how are you going to, cope with it? So your architecture, your design is an answer to that challenge, right? So that vernacular actually architectural styles are, beautiful, like answers to, like those kind of scenarios. Okay, so it is, first of all, it is very interesting to see like, how people have, constructed their, like structures over a long period of time. And I'm not talking about, in the present day, these structures are coming from several hundred and thousands of years, right? So at that time, there were no as such like, engineering colleges or engineers or things. Like every person who was in some kind of need, they were engineers to deal with it in the local resources. And that is the first and foremost, principle of sustainability. How to manage, things locally in the locally available resources, and how to answer to your local climate and weather. And you are done, right? So this is where, this module becomes, very important. I'm sure like you all have, enjoyed, different case studies I have put up, from different places. I myself, like, very much, at least this part is very interesting to, see like how human ingenious, this, things have, evolved. If you go to Gulf countries, like how they have survived, such an extreme, arid, temperature, and that too like a saline environment. It's very interesting to see. Okay, coming down to week 10, we have design for sustainability and nature as inspiration. So how to go for, designing for sustainability is explained in this one, like how we can take care of, any of those, like things. Like for example, if you want to extend the lifespan of your furniture, for example, when we see our grandfathers, our grandparents, furniture, okay, those furniture are there in our house for a very long period of time. Okay, but these, like ready-made furnitures, what we are getting, from market in the present time, they do not last for that long. Okay, they go bad, they develop some snag, some problem, they break or this and that, and you are kind of, compelled to throw them out in very few years, very short span of time. So if you compare, like a utility divided by the time, the function, and time, this ratio. Okay, if you are able to make use of one manufactured, product for a long period of time, that is equal to saving, n-1 number of, those products which you are going to need once your first product was going to go bad, right? So it's as good as, saving, those many n-1, products. So you see such a contribution. So very simple, you do not have to do, just kind of, design your product in such a way, design even the component of your product in such a way that it adopts a longer, life. Okay, so that you can make use of it. These days, if we see any gadgets or, house appliance, these products, they are coming with, certain, years of warranty, like, 1 year warranty, 3 year warranty, or things like that. Okay, after 5 years, 6 years, company do not, provide any paid service also, and they may say that, okay, no spare parts available. Okay, and compressor, warranty maybe up to 10 years. So maybe they can, in some cases they can serve, up to 10 years. What after that? So after that, you may be compelled to throw that product. But if you go with the, unit of satisfaction model. If you remember, my lecture which I have given in the lens class, that learning network and sustainability class, there I have spoken about this concept, unit of satisfaction. Well, what is needed out of a washing machine? If I just, ask you and me. So the answer is we want to wash our clothes. For that, we need not own the washing machine. It can be owned by somebody else also. For example, what if the company itself owns the product and just gives us, this facility to clean our, clothes, and it pays, just for like a charging 1 time, 2 time, 3 time, whatever, per pay per use, kind of a charges. For example, Xerox machines. Like when this Xerox, this company came into the existence in one of its models, one of its business models, it came up with a solution which was of that sort. So the company owned the product and it loaned it to you or your company for your uses, and you have to pay for per print. Okay. So what happens? The both of these scenarios for a designer or an engineer are very different than a regular. What happens in a regular product, that you design a product which is going to last for 10 years. And after that, it is going to go back. Okay. What happens in the second scenario, that your compulsion is now to make the product which is going to survive, going to last for a longer period of time, so that you can serve the customer for their uses and charge for their uses, not for owning the product. The responsibility of that product still remains with the company. So all its maintenance, care, servicing, repairability, spare parts, all of those things, they will take care of it. So the intention, the whole strategy for designing the products in these two different scenarios will be of two different types. And you see how it is linked to the environment, how it is linked to the sustainability. If a product is going to last for 50 years, you will be saved for 4 if the average life of that product is 10 years, isn't it? So this kind of approach is definitely going to help the environment, because right now the whole planet is suffering because so much of waste of any type and all type. It starts from normal paper and plastic and pen and electric gadgets, this, that, cloths, and all of those things. So all of this waste, if you see, maybe you can Google it differently for your interested that product, and you will find out how much of waste is being generated every day. As small as an insignificant product such as these cigarettes. These cigarettes are being sold in billions per day. You may be surprised to hear this number. I'm talking in billions. Okay, it is true. You go and Google, you will find these there are some agencies which have found out how many of these cigarettes are being kind of consumed every day, and most of them, they end up throwing that last part, that filter part, and that filter part actually contains very fine these yarn and fiber and those kind of stuff which sucks out like the particulate matter, right? It kind of reduces so that it doesn't goes in your lungs. All of those like fibers and that cigarette butt, it itself has become a cause of concern for the planet. Okay, so as such a insignificant product like a cigarette butt I'm talking about here, and now that also is threatening the balance of this planet. So you see like how important these things are to be taken care of. Let me move to the week 11. In here we have discussed international conventions. Very important to know what is going around the world. Like you may have heard of like a Kyoto Protocol or like a Paris Summit, right? Or recently like concluded that COP26 and things like that. Well, what are those? Those are actually platforms where all of the countries, they come together, they discuss, they deliberate these issues, what is happening in their own countries and how they are working to get rid of those issues, right? And then they discuss with the under the umbrella of United Nations, UNFCCC, and many other such organizations which are working for restoration of like a good balance, ecological balance on the planet, like how we can collectively work for it. And there are like amazing success examples also. It's not that it's all in vain. There are proven examples, such as I would give you this ozone hole. 20 years back it was such a big issue, right? 20-30 years back. when it started happening, right? And everybody was worried because it was directly going to cause like, ultraviolet, radiation, falling our skins and plants and everywhere. And that was going to cause us, so much of misery and, like a bad situation. Okay. A collective, approach from across the world, all of the countries, how they change, the technology of their, like a products and equipments and machines. Okay. So it proves things can be done. Okay. So all of these, like guidelines which are coming, such as like UN SDGs, they are not just, like for advertisement's sake or just for the sake of doing it. They are actually, they carry, potential that things can be improved. Just it requires, like participation from all of us. Definitely it can be done. Okay. So here in this one, we have discussed international conventions. What are the, laws, like legal, frameworks and, those situations. For example, if certain company is deliberately, trying to, or deliberately, doing some harm to the ecology or, maybe some community or a place, how they can be brought to, book, how they can be brought to the justice. So those kind of, provisions are also there in our constitution. Okay. With the, help of different laws, rules, regulation, tribunals, like you may have, heard of NGT, the National Green Tribunal. So if the moment there is any, such kind of disastrous, thing which is happening at the climate change level, it comes into the picture. Similarly, there are many other agencies also. So we have discussed, all of those there. It's very important to know about these also. And lastly, sustainable development, like case studies and summarizing the whole of this. So this was the, like week 12th, where, like I have tried, summarizing all of this together for a general, like an understanding in an overall sense. Yeah. So if there is any other questions, feel free to ask. So anyone from the audience, you may unmute yourself and ask. Yeah, so I'm glad you all have, taken this course, and I'm sure it's adding, to your knowledge base. If there is any like a feedback or any like, a point you would like to convey, you are free to, speak over here, or you can, mail NPTEL, or you can mail directly to me also. Okay. Books and references list is already given. Maybe in your free time, you can refer. Many of these books are actually freeware, books. So that's how, I have kept it. You can get them, online or, yeah, so things. So some of these are, like a freewares. So they do not charge, for some of these books. You can download them from online, right? Yeah, so this is almost it. And for your assignments, well, initial few assignments are MCQs to give you an outlook how the final examination is going to happen and how you have to answer. And these answer sheets are also, given to the NPTEL already. And the evaluation is goes by computer. For the some of the later ones assignments that we have kept it subjective, because like as I spoke, case-based, relationship, case-based, understanding of things, like how things are actually, happening, around us, is very important to understand. Because unless and until we do not relate to our, like real life, it's not enough just to, read and, just read off it, right? So I would suggest all of you to do those, subjective assignments also to your, best possible, effort. Go to, like your surrounding spaces and whatever surrounding places, and whatever the questions are like asked, I have given, some tools also. You can, in one of the assignments, it is asked to, evaluate your own house, your own individual house. And there is, this Swagriha tool, link given, which is freely available on their website. You can download it and you can make your own assessment. Okay. How to make the assessment is given, that information is also provided over there. Okay. So it's an, interesting exercise and interesting, kind of, a case study. You will also yourself, get to see the, different parts of your own house, how they are and how they should be, on the sustainability parameters. So I'm sure it will be very helpful to you. Yeah. Vibin, you want to ask anything?
Sir, no, sir. Fine, I am listening, sir.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. So that is the like overall format. So to answer that second question, your final exam is going to be just MCQs. So and it's going to be covered only from the lectures, okay, and the presentation what is shown in the lectures, right? So this material is enough for you to answer these assignments as well as this final exam. And additional course materials are given in that reference list. If there is anything else beyond this, you can get in touch with me. So I think with this we have come to the end of this interaction. Yeah, if anyone has any point to add, you are welcome. If you would like to share your own experience, how you are taking this course and how is it helping you in your studies or at your place of work. Anyone? Well, I would be happy to hear from at least someone. Yeah, Venkat sir, would you like talking about it?
So this solid waste management, which I feel is the most important as an individual, as a collective community wise. Of course, there is some mechanism which is already existing. Of course, I mean, I had attended two Coursera subjects on this. So that kind of awareness, at least among the students, from the very beginning, of course, especially for the environmental impact, that it has got quite a sufficient impact on the environment.
Yeah, agree.
A proper disposal at the end of it. So that is not being covered.
Yeah.
And I mean, sorry for saying it, any of the Indian courses or in the college or school curriculum as such. It's a waste which we are supposed to fear more than that of buying things and making them waste. That's what I feel. That of course there are financial constraints, but economic constraints, but still the society as such would like to go in order to keep their surroundings. If that can be communicated, I mean, combined with the others, then it becomes a society this thing. So I mean, that's not given to that extent.
Okay.
So we say that energy efficiency and all these things are much more important. I don't say that they are not important, but at the same time, this is it got an intangible benefit which we cannot really value to that.
Okay. So keeping LCA in mind, well, all of the stages of life of any product or machine or entity is very important. Well, of course, solid waste management becomes more important. And as you mentioned, initially, how to inculcate, this quality, this education, this awareness to the young generation. Okay. So if you recall my, this week 6, these lectures where I have spoken of, different hours, 6 hours, 9 hours. So in that one, recycling comes the last, because recycling is a stage where you are left with no other option but to recycle it. But before that, there are several other like hours also available where one can intervene. And as you have pointed out, this is very important to make everyone aware, at least our younger generation, that how they can save on the unnecessary consumption of things, right? So first and the foremost comes the hours, among all the hours, is to reconsider, rethink, right? So before making the purchase decision, one must actually rethink whether he or she actually needs that thing. Like in one of the assignments, like I have given, like you choose one product which is not so. If somebody takes it out, if I take it out that product from you, you're not going to miss that product. It's not going to cause any like a disturbance in your everyday life. That means that product is lying with you without any particular use, or without any specific use. It's just maybe a piece of decoration or something like that. Okay, well, piece of decoration also has a purpose if it is like a piece of decoration, but sometimes we end up buying unnecessary things. For example, in most of these cases, like these smart watches, Like many of my students, who gave, this reply that these smart watches are one of the, like products which we bought with so much of fanfare and interest, but this is something which we actually do not need. Okay, so and similarly, if you kind of glance in your own, like a space, you will find number. So yeah, hi Pavitra. You want to ask any question?
Sorry, sir.
Okay. Yeah. So to making this decision with the conscious, with the proper consciousness is very important. Whether I actually need it, then only you make the decision and then buy. If you are doing that, this problem of recycling won't happen because you did not bought it in the first place. So where is the question of recycling? Okay, so in between, there are many R's, like like reuse, like repurpose, right, and all of those kinds. The whole sequence. If you Google, you will find a set of 3 R's, 5 R's, 7 R's, 9 R's. There are 11 R's also. All of those R's, they come before the recycling because recycling is the last resort. There is nothing which can be done about it. Now you have to dispose it off. So how? Then comes the solid management, this waste management or all of those kind of like a waste management, not just solid ones, all types, like hazardous waste, there is liquid waste, there is semi-solid waste, there is biological waste, there is nuclear waste, all types of wastes are there, different types of gaseous waste, right? So how to take care of it? Well, solid waste is like waste which every household also produces. So you and me can directly relate, right? And it becomes very essential, like how we can take care of it. For example, when they advertise that you segregate your waste, first of all, you keep organic things at one place, you keep plastics at one place, paper at one place, because what happens when it goes to the recycling unit, for them it becomes a big challenge. For you and me, it is just few pieces of plastic or paper or maybe like a food stuff to segregate. For them it will become in tons, because everybody starts throwing just like a kind of mixed waste. It will become like tons and tons of waste to segregate them, because recycling also, if you study, is a very difficult task, and it involves like a costing. Unless and until the recycling is not cost worthy, who is going to do that, right? As I said, there is economics behind any and everything, even sustainability approaches. So if that recycling process is not economically feasible, there is a chance that it may not get recycled. It may be just thrown somewhere, right? And then it becomes the problem. So as Venkat sir pointed out, it is very important to first of all sensitize ourselves of our own responsibilities. Right there, all of this effort actually begins till the stage of recycling. And in between there are multiple. For example, if you own a book, and if you're done with that book, instead of throwing it, why can't you give it to somebody? They can also read. Why can't you gift it to a library? Number of people will get to read about that book, right? But if you just throw it, for example, even a magazine, like we buy magazines very frequently, every week, newspaper daily, right? All of these things, they are forming the huge bulk. Okay, and the bulk is getting bigger and bigger every day. If you visit like these major cities, like Bengaluru or New Delhi and many others, even Bombay, you will see these artificial hills are coming up, these cities. You go to north, you go to south, you go to east, west, you will find at least one. Well, those are the dumping yards which are growing higher and higher and higher and higher every year, right? And now they themselves have become like hill size, like multiple locations in one given city. And it's very, even though they are kind of compacting, there are road rollers which kind of compact them every few days. It gets compacted, it gets kind of labeled and all of those kind of things, but it's still very difficult to kind of take care of it. Recycling cannot be done. It's still something which is left over after even recycling. How to take care of that waste? So the waste is such a thing which is going to drown this whole planet. So very important point by Venkat sir. So I think something to ponder. See where you can contribute. I'm sure like all of these learnings will help us grow into a responsible person, responsible citizen. that's the overall, objective. So thank you all for joining, this session of today's. Yeah. Thank you, Venkat.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all for joining. Thank you, NPTEL, for providing, this platform for this interaction. I'm very happy that to take up this, and yeah, we would like to close it now. Yeah. NPTEL team, are you able to hear me? Okay, so we may leave the session now. You are free to leave the session now. Thank you all for joining. If you have any other queries, you can reach me on my email also. Thank you all.